Going live in three, two, one. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Chiefs fans. You are listening to Chiefs Central Radio on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I'm your host, as always, Jason Seibel, and with me is my good friend, my buddy, my partner in crime, my number two, Chris Kildoff. What's up, Chris?
Not much, just hanging out, having a good day, and getting ready closer and closer to football. And I guess we say that every week, but it's the only thing on my mind, so it's the only thing I can really talk about.
Well, you know what, brother? Football is back. It is actually Wednesday night. We're a day late this week recording the episode. Had some scheduling conflicts last night, but we are here as we record this episode Wednesday night. The Hall of Fame game is in the rearview mirror. The first official kickoff to the NFL preseason. Of course, the Buffalo Bills, New York Giants meeting up in that one, and but football on national TV. I mean, you can't beat it. It wasn't the Chiefs, not yet, but we did have. Did you catch it?
Oh yeah. We as soon as the first inkling of football was on, I'm there. But sat through it. The second half was kind of slow, but I mean they usually kind of are. But it's interesting always to get to see the people. Especially we play the Bills, so it's good to see kind of some of their different lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like, and we've talked about this before on the show, but it seems like for whatever reason, we end up playing the Bills every year. I don't know how that works out or why it works out, but yeah.
That's right.
So I mean,
I think that usually works to our advantage a little bit, though. So.
Well, it has the last few times that we've played them. Obviously, 2011 was the worst meeting. That was when Stevie Johnson cheap shotted Eric Berry and blew his ACL, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, and then of course the Giants, there's the Chiefs connection there because Jeff Schwartz and Quentin Demps both left the Chiefs for New York this offseason. So kind of fun to watch them. I mean, I'm a Schwartz fan. I like the guy. I thought he was a good football player for the Chiefs, and thought he really proved his worth. And obviously Quentin Demps, when I used to work for that other website, I actually got to interview Quentin Demps and talk to him. So
website we don't speak of.
Yeah, the name that shall not be mentioned. So, but yeah, I got to chat with him and talk with him, do an interview with him. So, real stand-up guy, straightforward dude. He's a local guy, local to me down here in San Antonio. So he's a San Antonio kid. So, yeah, cool dude. So yeah, Hall of Fame game is behind us, and now. Here we are. It's Wednesday night, which means that by the time that you Chiefs fans hear this podcast, we're going to be just about ready for some football, and that's Chiefs football. That's returning to Arrowhead. It's the first. I know it's preseason, and we're gonna get into all of that tonight on this episode of Chiefs Central Radio. But it's football. It's back, Chris. It is back.
Yeah, I'll take 800 preseason games if I have to. Any football is better than no football at this point.
Absolutely, and as we kind of celebrate football eve, if you will, and it's a long off season, man. Football's got the worst off season of any sport because it's 17 weeks regular season, 3 weeks of playoffs. An all-star week, so to speak, and then the championship game, and then there's nothing, and even though there's going-ons with the NFL calendar all year long with the draft and free agency and OTAs and then, the kind of month off and then training camp and you're back into it again, as far as actually watching games, it's a long off-season, and so one of the ways that I like to spend my off-season as we really, this is the end of the off-season. I mean, tomorrow, football's back. There will not be another Thursday night without football until Christmas Eve. I don't know if you realize that or not. Starting tomorrow night or tonight, as you listen to this, there will not be another Thursday without football until Christmas Eve. Let that one sink in as it's August.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely cool with that. But my point is, one way that I love to kind of help the days go by in the off season is I love to watch football movies. I've seen them all 100 times. And so I just thought, as we're, like I said, celebrating the football eve, what's your favorite all-time football movie or your favorite couple if you can't pick one?
Well, I do have a lot. I mean, there's a bunch out there I think that are, pretty good movies. And I don't think, I originally, when you first mentioned that to me, the first thing that went through my head was The Last Boy Scout. But then I was like, that's not really a football movie. Like, there's football in it, and there's football players kind of stuff going on. But I love the
What's
last
his name?
Boy Scout.
What's Damon Wayans' name in that? I haven't seen that movie in forever.
Oh, I can't remember his name either. I haven't seen it actually for a while either, but I've watched it a ton of times. But that movie is just like one of my favorites. But I'm not really going to count that one. It's not really like a football said movie. My favorite football movie is actually kind of a little bit more rare one. Have you ever seen The Program?
Oh yeah, that's a great movie.
That is a great
movie.
Like, if you talk to people about football movies, The Program generally doesn't come on people's lips because it was kind of like a B-rated, movie, and there wasn't really any big-name actors in it. Although
James Caan.
Yeah.
Was it James? Yeah, James Caan was the coach, right? Yeah, I remember that. And Matthew Modine.
Barry was in it as well.
She was also in The Last Boy Scout. She's the hooker that gets killed in the beginning.
Yeah. But that was the movie when I was in high school. I played football through junior high and high school, and that's the movie we used to watch when we get pumped up. And like the actor that's in that, the character is Steve Vladimir. And he's like the huge, just like steroided out white dude in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
He like paints the skull on his face, and he's like screaming at people, and like just like that kind of just energy. It's funny that Andrew Barinsky, I think is how you pronounce his last name, but he's the guy. He actually played like Leatherface in all the
wow,
those movies, and so like he just always has that level of energy. I always loved it.
Yeah, Program. That's a great movie. That was the movie that they cut the scene out. He lays down in the middle of the street or something to kill himself.
In the the railroad.
Yeah, the railroad. Yeah, and they ended up cutting it out. They didn't want kids trying that. Art imitating life. Yeah, no, Program. That's a great flick.
But they kept all the scenes in there of them shooting needles of steroids into them.
Right. Well, yeah. What kind of prompted me to bring this up on this show is if you haven't seen it, Chris, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about it off the air, but and then also for you, Chiefs fans, there's a NFL.com's got a great. They're calling it the oral behind the scenes history of the movie Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
It's been 15 years since Varsity Blues came out, and basically they brought the original writer of Varsity Blues and then the guy who kind of rewrote the script and the director and then the actors together and just basically talked about how that movie got made because the original version of that script was written in like '84.
Oh wow.
Yeah, believe it or not, and so very, very interesting piece, and so I highly recommend it. It takes you probably about 15 minutes to go through and read everything on it. It's got a couple of videos and stuff, with what's the kid's name, Dawson Creek, James Van Der Beek talking about the role and the Tweeter. They talked to Tweeter, but one thing that I thought was crazy about that is the kid that played Wendell, the quote-unquote token black guy in the movie, the running back, actually, that was the only movie he was ever in. He was a production assistant for that company, but they grabbed him because he played ball at Stanford, and he actually played for the Kansas City Chiefs for a very short time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. So anyway, go read that if you haven't read that. It's a pretty interesting little piece, and Varsity Blues definitely sticks up there for me as one of my favorite.
I hate James Van Der Beek so much, it would also be one of my favorites. But I have to watch that kind of and just like hold my hand up to the screen to block him out.
I don't want your life.
And make sure to keep Ali Larder in view. So it's really tricky. Like, you got to block out James Van Der Beek, but you got to keep the whipped cream bikini in,
Which was actually shaving cream. It wasn't whipped cream because they said whipped cream would melt too fast, so they had to actually use shaving cream. So,
way to ruin the fantasy, Siebel.
I know. What could I say? But I gotta say, this might not be a popular choice as far as favorite football movie goes, because like you said, there's so many. I mean, Any Given Sunday, fantastic movie.
Oh, yeah. That's
the Program, great movie. And then of course you got the comedy spectrum. You got Waterboy and The Longest Yard. But my personal favorite, kind of my go-to, is The Replacements with Keanu.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Big fan of that movie. I love the movie. I love the football action. I love the plot that it's during the strike year and there are a bunch of scabs. I love I love the characters in it, and I'm a kind of a Keanu fan, so having him play Footsteps Falco.
I got a quick anecdote for you on that movie. Actually, I knew a girl who lived here who used to bartend out at a bar out here, and she said that the guy who plays the Irish like drunk kicker in that, whoever, I don't know who the guy is.
I don't know who he is either. Yeah.
Pulled up on IMDb or anything, but he actually was in their bar one day, and he was bragging about how he was in that movie, and he was super drunk. And she said his character was exactly like how he was in real life.
That's
like,
funny.
Total trash talky drunk Irish dude, and it was so funny. She was like, he was like exactly like he was in the show.
That's funny.
It's funny.
Yeah, love that movie. I mean, just like I said, it's my go-to football movie. Like if I'm in the mood to watch a football movie and I don't know like what I want to watch because I've got them all, in my library. It's like, yeah, I want to throw in the replacements, or throw in like it's a VCR tape or something. I have Apple TV and my entire library is digitized, so it's literally let me push the button on the replacements. But yeah, good flick, man. So, but we are at the point where we don't have to watch football movies anymore because football's on TV, and kind of the way that the NFL likes to kick off the preseason is with the opening episode of Hard Knocks. And I noticed you mentioned it on Facebook and whatnot that you're a huge Hard Knocks fan, and I'm a huge Hard Knocks fan. Obviously, the Chiefs have had their turn with Hard Knocks. They showed the replay of the Chiefs season or earlier during the off season. They had all 5 episodes on or whatever, of course, with Herm Edwards and the Larry Johnson holdout and the quarterback controversy with Damon Heward and Brody Croyle and all of that, hearkening back to, I think it was the 07 season when they were on. Mm-hmm. But just love the way that Hard Knocks is done. Of course, this year it's the Atlanta Falcons. And the first episode was on last night, Tuesday night, so I'm sure you tuned in. What'd you think? I mean,
I did. I'm a huge Hard Knocks fan. I actually unfortunately got into it right after the Chiefs were on it. Like when the Chiefs were initially on it, I didn't have HBO or something, and I wanted to watch it, I never got to. And that was the first time I'd ever really kind of followed it. And then afterwards, I'd seen the next season. I had to go back and watch all the Chiefs stuff, but then I've followed it just really close ever since. I just love seeing more, when you say you're a football fan, but really you can only get so close to football. You can watch it every single Sunday, and that's only really a glimpse of maybe 2% of what, goes on being a football player and being a coach and being an organization. And when you watch a show like that and get to see the people's lives that are affected and people's day-to-day grind, you go to your job every day and you do your work, your 8-hour shift every day, and then you go and you see these people that, it really brings up that football are these people's lives, their livelihood. They have families, they have, struggling for positions, and it really opens your eyes when you're watching the actual game to the emotion involved for a lot of these guys. And I think it's just a beautiful thing to kind of see that whole process and see behind the scenes, and then also get to see some of that good football action that you love anyway.
Yeah, I mean, NFL Films does a fantastic job in the filming aspect, but kind of one thing that I found interesting about this first episode, and spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about it, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want to listen, fast forward about a minute and a half, but it's the first day of camp, and the guys are throwing punches at each other, and I mean they're trying to knock each other's head off. I mean, legitimately. Now I'm not talking in a football sense. I'm talking they're pissed at each other and they're throwing punches. Which why you want to punch a guy in the head that's wearing a football helmet is beyond me. I didn't really get that. But one thing that I found interesting about that dynamic, and I mean in that hour-long episode, I think there were 4 or 5 fights. To the point where the defensive line coach is just throwing up his hands, Mike Tice, going, guys, we're not going to get any better doing this, just kind of waiting for him to clear the pig pile. But my point here is I went to 2 Chiefs practices. We talked about my trip to training camp on last week's episode. I didn't see that at all. I mean, those guys are being physical with each other. They're going one-on-one, defensive linemen against, linebackers or I'm sorry, offensive linemen against pass rushers and that kind of thing. I didn't see that at all. I never once saw Tamba Hawley and Eric Fisher go to blows. You know what I mean? I didn't see that. And so, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it comes down a little bit, too. I think you could tell from the year that Atlanta had last year, they really pushed the second that everybody got in camp, and they showed it quite a bit. They're saying, hey, teams are out there saying we're the team that doesn't have any heart. We're a team that doesn't have, we're not an emotional team. We're not a team, we're a team that's going to let someone, come back in the second half of the game and walk all over us. And I think that pulled on some guys' strings, and I think that's why you're seeing the physicality that you're seeing there, just because I think they're really pushing for that. And if you notice, the coaches, after it all, they're laughing about it. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, man, those guys are really getting after it. And
they did the interview with head coach Mike Smith, and he was talking about the guy that he's married to, the reality star, the blonde.
Bierman.
Yeah, there you go. And he's like, yep, he got into it first day. They got a little thing going. He's like, and it's good. And I'm like, is it though? Because I don't see Andy Reid having that same interview. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see Andy Reid sitting there saying it's okay that Fisher and Hawley are throwing blows at each other. I don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it as much either, and it probably matters, goes organization to organization a little bit. But I think that they're okay with it just because, they just want to see some life in their guys.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's going to get too drastic and too out of hand, but
not like Chicago.
Well, I mean, that one scene where the dude was straight up punching the dude, I mean, that was pretty bad. But, I think that they're just excited to have their guys be up and going. I really don't think it's going to be them saying, go out and get violent, but they're looking for energy there. My favorite scene in it, out of the whole thing, was the editing that they did between Devontae Freeman getting his apartment and William Moore's house. William Moore had, that multi-million-dollar house, and Devontae Freeman is like sitting in his little bathtub. He's like, oh, I'm like a king in here. And then it cuts to William Moore's house, and he has the huge pool with the waterfall.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic, and it's a good point that you bring up because, obviously it's the same on every team. People kind of, the general public, the fans at large, obviously there's different degrees of fandom, as you and I know. But I think a lot of people just automatically assume you're a pro football player, you're a millionaire, you're making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and that's just not the case, especially now with the way that the rookie salary cap and the rookie contracts are structured. These kids, they're making good money. Don't fool yourself into thinking that they're making peanuts by any means, but once their agent takes a take and their manager takes a take and their taxes, they're paying taxes, the money disappears quickly. And so, I thought that it was very good that they showed that here's this rookie running back, like you said, living in this apartment. Funny anecdote on that, not having to do with football, but basketball actually, being down here in San Antonio, we have the San Antonio Spurs, and my wife works for a property management company, and they actually rent a house to Kawhi Leonard, who was on the San Antonio Spurs. Who up until now hasn't been making a lot of money. So, he's just rented a house. He wasn't sure if he was staying in San Antonio and stuff. And so I've seen pictures of the inside of his house through my wife's company, and there's nothing in it. There's a bed. There's a couch. There's nothing on the walls. You know what I mean?
There's still a lot of those professional athletes, though. The reason why they're the level that they are is they sleep, eat, and breathe football.
It's true.
You're going to be, sometimes if you take a step back, like I was explaining to somebody the other day, and they were like, I think we were talking about, I don't know, some crappy quarterback. I think we were talking about, I don't know who it was. Let's just say it was Mark Sanchez. And, it was it was some crappy quarterback in the league, and they're like, how does he, how does he have this job and he's this bad quarterback and yada yada. And I was like, you got to realize that there are 32 people in the world who are NFL starting quarterbacks.
That's it.
32 people in the world. That means even if you're the worst, if you're Mark Sanchez, you're the 32nd worst quarterback in the world. That's amazing. That level of quality and that level of, and I know those stats aren't exactly right. I'm sure there's some backups and stuff like that, but numbers wise, that means you're one of the elite players that play your position.
That's true.
You know,
I was just going to say, I think that the general consensus right now is Matt Castle is the worst starting quarterback in the league.
Sure.
But
and you know, and he'd been riding the coattails from those couple big performances when he was with the Patriots. But you know, it's just like it's trying to wrap your head around that level of athleticism and play that you can do with that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's very true, and you know, it's actually works out well because talking about you know, quarterbacks and elite play and everything else and making the money. Big news this week is kind of one of the last guys that was out there waiting for a contract. Coincidentally enough, the quarterback that the Chiefs will be facing Thursday night at Arrowhead for the preseason game number 1, Andy Dalton, the Ginger Menace from Cincinnati, got his big payday. $115 million contract, 6 years, essentially a five-year, $95 million after you take away the 1 year that he still has on this contract is kind of how it worked out. You know, similar to the Kaepernick deal in that it is not a lot of guaranteed money. They can kind of dump him after 2 years kind of thing, which is the way that a lot of these contracts are going now. They look big on the outset, but they're not as big as they really look once you dig into the numbers and how the guaranteed money is spread out. What do you think about the Dalton contract? Justified?
They're nice in the aspect that it allows, when you sign a contract that's developed like that, where you're getting, you know, a basic little bonus up front that's adjusting your contract of the money you're getting, and then bigger and bigger bonuses depending upon how, you know, his is set up. You know, he's you know, $3 million 2015 with the signing bonus, but then there's 10.5 in 2016, and then it keeps getting bigger. 13.1 and 17, 13.7 and 18, 16 and 2019. I mean, the higher it goes up, he's getting these huge pay raises. So what they're doing basically is saying, come in and perform, and if we end up wanting to keep you, then we're going to have to pay you big to do it. Right. And so I think it gives a lot of these guys the inside ability to go, okay, well, I'm just going to come in, and the incentive to play hard is huge, you know. So I think a contract like that is awesome for both the player and the organization.
Now, what do you think about a contract like that for Alex Smith, who's a little bit older? You know, he just turned 30 this year. You know, obviously Dalton, he just finished the end of his rookie deal, so he's like, what, 26? Mm-hmm. You know, Smith's got a little bit more, you know, a little bit more miles on the engine. Because, you know, we've heard the rumors, and that's really all they are, because unless you're, you know, John Dorsey, the general manager of the Chiefs, or Tom Condon, Alex Smith's agent, or Alex Smith, you don't know the details of what's on the table. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't care if you're Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter or anybody. You know, those guys have sources, got it, but unless you're one of those three guys that are directly involved with the, you know, the contract negotiations, you don't know what's on the table. But we've heard the rumors of 6 years, $126 million. But there's kind of another, you know, alternative theory that's floating around out there that maybe it's not so much the amount of money that Smith wants as far as or as much as he wants stability. He wants a 5-year deal, maybe not necessarily in that, you know, complete stratosphere range money-wise, but he wants the guaranteed money more spread out so that he's going to have stability, and he knows that the team can't dump him after 2 years because all the guaranteed money is up front. I mean, do you think that that's more – I mean, what would you rather see? Would you rather see a, you know, hey, look, we're going to give you guaranteed money up front for 2 years, but we can dump you after 2, or would you rather see Smith stick around with a more evenly distributed contract?
Well, first off, I guarantee you that's what Smith's looking for, just because he's never had stability his whole entire NFL career. You know, even when he was in San Francisco, it was new coach, new offensive coordinator. Like, you know, there was stuff going on all over the place. So he's looking to settle down. He's proved that he is an above-average quarterback that, you know, he originally was thought to be, and he wants something to settle down in and get something working and give him some time to put in work. I would much rather see a contract similar to something like this Dalton and Kaepernick, just because because he hasn't had that stability, he hasn't had a chance to prove himself in consistency over, years period. So I'd like to see, I've wavered on, his ability to do certain things just from stuff I've seen in the past. But if he can come in and perform like he did last year, let's keep giving him the money. I don't think we need him to be too much more of an offensive threat with everything else we have going on. If he can keep the interceptions down and keep managing games and starting to hit some of those big passes, then that's money for us.
Yeah, a quarterback goes over 30 and he's kind of really just hitting his stride. It's not like a running back where a running back turns 30 and you're looking to the future. And that's kind of the thing. So it's a very interesting dynamic. Talking about this, and Smith has said in his post practice press conferences, there's going to come a point, and he hasn't said what that point is. But there's going to come a point where he's going to shut these contract negotiations down for the season because he's going to want to concentrate on football. And he hasn't said if that's going to be during the preseason or if it's going to be once the season starts. And that's interesting. That's interesting he would say that. I mean, the guy's obviously, he's all in with the Chiefs. He's been at OTAs and the mini camps and training camp. There was never any kind of an indication of a holdout. Obviously the Jamal Charles thing, he held out for like 30 minutes or something like that, ran out of gas on the way to training camp. There was Houston held out of the off-season program in OTAs and the mini camp, and he still hasn't got his deal yet, but he did show up at training camp, even though there was some speculation of whether or not he was going to show up to training camp. But Smith has never given any indication. He's never given any indication that he was going to put this contract over the team. And I think there's something to be said about that. He's all in. And I think that he knows, that if he performs better, as good or better than he did last year, that he's going to be in the driver's seat with that contract. Because, really and truly, if the Chiefs can go 11-5 again or 10-6 again, make a playoff run again, especially with a tougher schedule, I think he knows that he's going to, he's going to win his spot at the table, so to speak. So we'll see. It's definitely interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they do a deal before the season. Supposedly, they're still quite a ways apart as far as what the two sides are asking for. But again, that's all conjecture and speculation from the talking heads at NFL and ESPN and that. So interesting stuff for sure. But it is a kind of a weird coincidence, that the two quarterbacks that we're talking about are the two quarterbacks that are going to match up, so to speak. It's preseason, so but
that'll also be a nice gauge. If you go in, each quarterback gets 3 series or something like that, like they usually do. They usually get 2 or 3 series, and to kind of see what each one can do with their team. The Bengals and the Chiefs aren't far too different for what they, obviously, they have one big receiver and a bunch of kind of lesser no-name receivers. That's kind of their receiving core. They've both got lots of talent at running back, and they both got lots of dangerous guys on defense with an unproven quarterback.
You're absolutely right.
Really similar team-wise, so it'll be interesting to see what each one can do in that game to see where Alex Smith stands maybe with that contract.
Surprisingly enough, their offense and defense were tied with each other on both sides of the spectrum last year. In some categories, I believe it was actually in points scored. I believe in points scored, Cincinnati and the Chiefs averaged the exact same amount of points per game. And then same thing with defense. Both defenses were tied for the exact amount of points allowed. I believe that was how the stat added up. But yeah, very interesting. You're absolutely right. They are very, very similar teams. It's going to be an interesting preseason, and it gives me great pleasure to say that for the first time in the 2014 season, this is Duff and Jason's game preview. So we need to come up with a sound effect for that or something. But Yeah, so previewing the Chiefs Bengals game, and because it's the first preseason game, Chris, I'll ask you, kind of what are you looking for in a preseason game? And what I mean by that is, do you care as much as the team wins, or do you just want to see how the guys play?
I'd like to see the team win because that means that we're playing well together. I mean,
Right.
I think if you get the win, it's showing that you're doing better, versus an opponent. So I think, and it goes to show, I think, the depth of your team. 90% of that game is being played by backups, especially the first game. So, it goes to show if you can play really well in the preseason, I think it really shows the depth of your team, which is always huge down the road with injuries and, all that can kind of come down. But the thing I'm really looking for is kind of what we discussed a little bit last week is, I want to see some of those key position battles. I want to see, we've hit each other in pads, we've studied the playbooks, we've scrimmaged and, two-hand touch to the quarterback and all that kind of stupid stuff. So it's time to see, in gameplay, who can be that guy that makes the plays, That's what you need to see, especially when those key position battles like that we have with the cornerbacks and the wide receivers, who's going to make that interception, which of those tight ends is going to, catch that deep end zone pass, and so it really comes down to who's going to make those plays that make this team.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of touched on this before, and I wanted to kind of go back to it. As far as the quarterbacks and playing time, Andy Reid has said, and I found this interesting, there's 4 quarterbacks on the Chiefs roster. He's going to give each quarterback 1 quarter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so a quarter for Alex Smith is a little bit longer than we would expect to see. But in this order, we suspect because the first unofficial depth chart was released earlier this week. It'll go Alex Smith in first quarter, Chase Daniel second quarter, Tyler Bray third quarter, Aaron Murray fourth quarter. So he has said that he's going to give each quarterback a quarter to play. So that's interesting kind of tidbit number 1 to look forward to now. As far as the rest of the team goes, there's not enough players to make up 4 distinct units. There's not a first, second, third, and fourth string. So that would leave one to think that guys are going to kind of mix and match in there. I don't expect Jamal Charles to play more than a series, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can't imagine they'd do that. I mean, they know what that guy can do, especially when they really want to see more of what those other guys can do. They want to give those DeAnthony Thomas and Nile Davis and Chris Gray or Cyrus Gray and those guys the chance to go out there and look good.
Yeah.
So if they can have more time to do that, the better.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm okay with Smith playing a full quarter because I want to see what kind of chemistry he's developing with these receivers because, obviously there's only one Jamal Charles, and we got that. And as much as we can say Nile Davis, may be his eventual, usurper to the crown, right now there's only one Jamal Charles, and we know what Jamal can do. We know what he's capable of, and we're okay with that, especially, because he's on our side. But the point I'm getting at is Smith has multiple receivers that he's going to have to work with depending on packages and personnel sets during the season. So keeping him in for an entire quarter, I'm excited to see what kind of chemistry he's developed with receivers. He did have some good chemistry going with Bo. All reports out of training camp, besides even what I saw, and I saw some good stuff between him and Dwayne Bowe. But there is a good chemistry there. They seem to have built up a rhythm, and that we kind of saw going in towards the latter part of last season. Bo had the best game of his season last year in the wild card game. Except for he can get both feet in bounds, but we won't talk about that. But there's other receivers on the field. Donnie Avery's going to be out there. I don't think Hemingway is playing. I think he's still out with a hamstring. He hasn't hardly practiced at all.
I haven't seen reports on that either.
But AJ Jenkins, he had a little bit of rapport with him. Kyle Williams, he's thrown some good stuff to him. And then these younger guys, Albert Wilson. Jackson, I want to see what he's able to make connections with them, because one would suspect that they're going to rotate through. And then, of course, what's sitting behind Alex Smith on the on that depth chart? We've seen Chase Daniel in a little bit of action, but we haven't seen Tyler Bray throw the ball since last preseason, and we haven't seen Aaron Murray at all, in a Chiefs uniform. And I'm kind of curious, because I don't think that the Chiefs are going to keep 4 quarterbacks on their roster going into the regular season. I just don't see it happening. But they say that Bray has all the talent in the world. Are they willing to let that go? Or are they willing to let go of a 5th-round draft pick in Murray? Are they going to dump the guy that they're paying $3 million a year? I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting dynamic through these 4 preseason games of which one they're going to get rid of.
Well, and a lot of that's probably going to once again depend on the preseason play. There's 2 advantages of that. Not only do you get to see who's going to play, but then everybody else in the league gets to see who's playing. So, Chase Daniels comes in and he's slinging the ball and looking good, and our other guys are looking good too. If it's him we want to get rid of just because of cap space or whatever, and there's somebody interested, then maybe that allows us to, make some moves.
Well, I tweeted that out a couple days ago that I had a gut feeling that the Chiefs may be working on a Chase Daniel trade, and of course I got a lot of hate spit back at me, but it wouldn't surprise me. Andy Reid's done it before. He's put a guy in and put him in a position to perform well, a.k.a. the Week 17 game against San Diego. And Chase looked good in that game. Chase damn near beat the Chargers. The JV almost upset the varsity squad. I mean, had it not been for a shitty call by the refs and 2 shitty calls by the refs, that stupid fake punt that Weddle stopped his forward progress and fumbled, and they weren't sure that, and then yeah. Anyway, but you know what I mean. The Chiefs, they would have won that game, and what an upset. The entire backup squad beats the starters of the Chargers. But my point is that he's got some tape, and he looked okay. For what it was. So is there a team out there that needs him? I can't really think of a starting quarterback hungry team that would need him right now. Now, God forbid, and I'm not trying to jinx anybody, so I'm going to knock on the wood right here. A quarterback from another team gets hurt in preseason. Changes the dynamic completely. Maybe now all of a sudden somebody's looking for Chase Daniel to step into that starting role, and he's trade bait. Who knows? Like I said, we're speculating at this point, but that's to me that's going to be a very interesting storyline to watch as this season progresses. They were
saying something like, I don't know if I have the exact number right, but they're saying like Chase Daniels is like the 31st highest paid quarterback in the league.
He's making like $3.5 million a year. As a backup to carry Smith's clipboard. So, and a lot of people were upset with that contract last year. And I say people, fans, that speak out on Twitter and elsewhere. They thought it was too much to pay him to come over, because he was Drew Brees' backup in New Orleans, since he came out of college, but they kind of had to give him a little bit of a good paycheck in order to bring him back, bring him to Kansas City. So, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, that's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch. Running backs, I think that one is pretty much laid out. I think that barring, one of those bottom of the roster guys, and I'm talking about Cyrus Gray, Joe McKnight, Kendrick West, one of those guys are really just going nuts and just showing something that nobody's seen yet. I think that running backfield is pretty well set. I don't see that, and Charles and Davis and DAT. Obviously the wide receiver battle is going to be huge as far as the offense goes. But on the defensive side, things that we're watching for is that pass rush back. It kind of fell off last year. What do you think, man?
Ford. I think we're going to see some of it. I think we're going to get to see some different schemes, and I I think Reed knows better to not pull the tricks out of his hat, so I don't think we'll see anything too fancy. But I think we'll see a lot of just straight bull rush, nothing fancy, trying to get the guys to get some pressure on the quarterbacks. And, and also, some run stopping. They have a very talented, deep running game there in Cincy. There's a lot of mixed up different types of backs there, and I think we're going to get to see some of that gap filled by those linebackers too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, especially that first quarter, that first couple series, how our defense handles A.J. Green. Because obviously one of the biggest concerns with the Chiefs right now is as we stand, 2 plus weeks into preseason or into training camp, is the fact that there really has not been a number one cornerback that's really kind of emerged. Everybody's upset Flowers is gone, and I got it. He was kind of a mainstay in Kansas City. You were even a little sore about that one. But the Bengals have, I would say, probably one of the best receivers in the league in A.J. Green. I mean, that guy's
definitely top 3 in my opinion.
You just read my mind. I was literally going to say top 3. I think I would probably put Megatron and who?
I don't know. I think Julio Jones is up there, another young guy who's just amazing.
Megatron over him, maybe Julio Jones, maybe Demaryius Thomas, but I mean,
Dez.
Or Dez Bryant, but I mean, definitely A.J. Green. Definitely top 3, top 4 receiver in the league. Who are they going to put on him, and are they going to be able to deal with him? I mean, he's a big body guy.
They're only going to have to deal with him for the first probably set of downs because I'm sure they're not going to take too many risks with him. But it will be interesting to see kind of what goes on there. I think they're definitely going to have to probably double team him. Luckily, they're not too deep at that wide receiver position. I heard, like I said, my guy who I've grown up with and is a big, football fan, a Bengals fan. He's kind of informed me. Mohamed Sanu's had a huge camp for them. So he kind of showed some spark last year. I'd seen in a few different games, but apparently he's looking like he's going to be that dude over there. So.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. I think whoever they put on A.J. Green, it's going to be a good litmus test for how good a cornerback are you. How good a cornerback are you? Can you go down the field with this guy one-on-one? And that's going to be a good test to see, can whoever that guy is, if it's Marcus Cooper, if it's Ron Parker, if it's Sean Smith, is that the guy that we can trust to go one-on-one with Demaryius Thomas twice this year, or Keenan Allen in San Diego, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's going to be a good test. But who are the 3 guys? And it's just because for the sake of we can't talk all night about this as much as I'd love to. Who are the 3 guys that you're going to be watching? During this preseason game, you got 3 picked out that you kind of want to keep your eye on.
In preseason for NFL or just KC?
No, just in this game, just in the Cincinnati game, this first preseason game. 3 guys that you want to kind of keep your eye on.
Number 1's got to be Anthony Thomas. I mean, I don't know how anybody can be following the Chiefs and not say that. I mean, I was on the hype train as soon as we drafted him. I watched him in Oregon, and he's just spectacular and just one of those guys that has that special it factor, So I'm excited there to see him in action. I hope they find some ways to at least get the ball in his hands. I saw, too, he's going to be kick returning, so that's also going to be a nice gauge to kind of see what he can do there. I'm really excited about, at first I wasn't fully on it, but the more I've been following Zach Fulton, I'm excited to see, everyone is raving about, what a steal we got in the 8th round with him. So
sixth round.
I'm sorry, yeah. And, everyone's been really excited about that, so I'm excited to make sure he holds up. And then my boy Travis Kelce, I really, now that he's healthy, we've needed that solid tight end position for so long. It's just been this vacant spot, and we've kind of cycled through people, and we need somebody that can break out and really give us an up-the-middle threat that's that big body guy for the red zone. So.
Yeah, I'm nervous about Kelsey, man, because Kelsey was healthy in the preseason last year. It was in the preseason where he hurt his knee.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't. People are going to get hurt no matter what.
I know. But I'm with you, man. As far as Kelsey goes, like, they do those. Well, he projects to be the next Gronkowski or the next Jimmy Graham, and I don't necessarily buy into all that, but I mean, he's got talent. You watch his highlight stuff from college, and I mean, the guy's got talent. He's got the ability to catch the ball and move upfield. Like you said, he's a big body guy. But he's got some speed to him. He's got hands. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm excited to see him and see what he can really do, and just hope that he can just stay healthy through the preseason so we can get him in and to the regular season. So yeah, my three, obviously DAT, DeAnthony Thomas, the Black Mamba.
Run that.
Yeah, run that. Data Boy. I mean, they're all out there, man. Yeah, they're all out there. He's gonna be. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep saying it until it sinks into everybody. By week 3 of this season, he's going to have people saying Dexter who, DMC what? Yeah, I mean, it's unfair. It's going to happen because he's the addition by subtraction. Dexter McCluster goes away. They draft this kid who's going to fill that role of that OW offensive weapon, kick returner, punt returner. Option him to the slot. 15 touches a game, whatever, see what he can do with the ball. But he's going to be exciting, and I'm definitely going to be watching. I mean, last year, if you remember in preseason, special teams was kind of the centerpiece of preseason. Huge run backs, huge returns, some touchdown, kickoffs, return for touchdowns, punts. And I think we may be in store for that again. Dave Taub, the special teams coordinator in Kansas City, is extremely talented. He's already said DAT reminds him of Devin Hester, who he coached in Chicago. So, yeah, he's definitely the top of my list of the guys that I want to watch in a real-life situation. I want to see Dee Ford. I want to see how this rookie pass rusher can do. I'm curious to see, and there were reports out of camp that they actually had a couple of sets where they had Ford, Hawley, and Houston all on the field at the same time. So 3 outside linebacker.
Why not?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Why not? I mean, obviously that's a situation, a passing down where you're going all in, and you're playing a 1 high safety.
Yeah,
so
but you're going to play against 3rd and long a bajillion times this year. So it's not
absolutely
that's unreasonable.
And that's what I want to see. I mean, I want to see all 3 of those guys on the field because, like you said, why not? I mean, the more guys you have flying towards the quarterback, the better. Absolutely. So I'm curious to see how he holds up, and obviously the big comparison with him. Everybody says he's got that quick first step like the late great Derek Thomas had. So I'm not quite ready to put a 58 on him and send him to the Hall of Fame just yet, but I'm excited to watch him for sure. And then the third guy is Philip Gaines, the quarterback that they drafted in the 3rd round. Everybody says he's a little underweight, that he's small. Had a couple of minor injury issues in training camp, getting dinged up, but I'd like to see. I mean, he's 6 foot. He's skinny. He's 185. He needs to eat a couple cheeseburgers and get in that weight room. But I'm excited to see if he can hold up under that defensive pressure, because our secondary. I'm not going to say it's the weakest part of the team, although it probably is. I'm just going to say it's probably the biggest question mark. Is this secondary? And unfortunately, it was the weak link on this team last year. It's the primary reason why the team lost the games that they did. Going back to that San Diego game, losing in the last second and allowing a touchdown, with 5 seconds left on the clock or whatever. The first San Diego game. It's the reason that they allowed Peyton Manning to just torch them twice last season, and then of course it's the reason that they lost the wild card game. It's that secondary, So if he can step up and be a force to be reckoned with, I'm excited to see that. So those are the 3 guys that I'm really going to be watching. But obviously, like I said, it's going to be all eyes all eyes on the Chiefs to see what we can do. So it's here, brother.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm definitely
here.
lost any patience I had a long time ago. So it's creeping up. You start getting the preseason games, and you start getting the fantasy drafts, and I'm foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, well, when we finally know it's here, preseason's here, Hard Knocks is on TV, and then the last thing is the Madden release. Madden's coming out in a couple weeks. The Madden 15. And you said before we went on the air, you're a every year guy, right? You get the new edition every year.
I do. We kind of have, not only do we do fantasy football with our group of friends, but we do fantasy draft Madden, where basically we go in and make a league every year with about 4 or 5 of us, and then we all play our team. I play the Chiefs. There's a Seahawks guy, a Cincinnati guy, a 49ers guy, and all those guys. And then we just do a draft where it basically auto-drafts a bunch of random players to our team, so it's not our actual real Kansas City team and stuff like that. And then we play our entire season and against each other, like when we play Cincy and when we play, Seattle, like we would play that in-game, live on live, player, and then play against the computer for the other one. So, we do that kind of a thing too, and so I'm always stoked when the Madden stuff comes out to kind of see where everything's at.
Well, the game actually releases, I think, the 26th of August, but EA Sports released today the AFC West rankings as far as all the players and everything goes, and so really quickly before we wrap up this show, I just wanted to get your take on this. The Chiefs got an overall 82 rating, which isn't bad. It's better than what they've been. I think they've been right in the high 70s, 79. Jamal Charles is the fastest running back in the game. I should say tied. This one kind of pissed me off. They've got Jamal Charles tied with Chris Johnson. Really?
I don't know, man. Chris Johnson, if anything, he's fast.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I mean, it's not like Chris Johnson has a 97 overall. His speed's just the same.
Yeah, well, they're both the fastest running backs in the game at 98. Charles is a 97 overall. They gave Alex Smith an 89 overall, which I think is fair.
That's so funny. What did they mark Charles down for? I didn't see the full stats. I just saw the overalls.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't see his.
What did you put him down for? He doesn't fumble. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't. I mean, I guess he does get hurt a little bit, but.
Let's see. We've got so Jamal Charles.
I wonder what you mark down on someone like him.
They gave him a 98 speed, an 85 catch.
How does he get an 85 catch?
Well, it says he's the second-ranked pass catcher for halfbacks with an 85 catch.
They just rank catching really low for halfbacks.
Yeah, they must.
That guy doesn't miss a pass.
But that must be where the 97 is, because he's got a 99 elusiveness and a 99 ball carrier vision. So, and that's the highest of any running back. So he's tied for the fastest speed. He's got the second-ranked pass catcher at an 85, and then he's got the highest elusiveness and the highest ball carrier. So he's the third-ranked the third-ranked running back in the game, behind LaShawn McCoy, who's a 97, and then of course Adrian Peterson is going to be a 98 because he's Adrian Peterson, even though he wasn't at that good last year. But
and his pass catch should be 0.
Yeah, doink. So. So I mean, pretty interesting stuff. It's always, like I said, it's always interesting when this stuff comes out. But Madden's coming out in a couple weeks, and I am too. I'm usually an every year kind of guy, because I like having the updated rosters, and they do usually do a pretty good job of updating the game every year. I mean, there's usually different stuff that's added to it. Every year. I haven't seen really what they're doing this year. Have they added any great new features this year, or is it
pretty minuscule? I watched the E3 conference on it when E3 happened, and I mean, it looks pretty minuscule. They kind of reworked, like they do every year, the tackling system a little bit more, and but I didn't see any huge. They didn't really recalibrate anything, like crazy, like sometimes they do. I think it's more of a kind of an off year. I think they're running out of stuff to do. They're like, well, what can we do here?
Yeah.
But the game looks real, and it's going to be next gen graphics. I mean, they're building it for 60 frames per second at 1080 p. So the actual like PS4 version, I'm a PlayStation guy, is going to be like the frames per second is huge in sports games because the fluidity of motion and stuff like that's a big difference. So
Yeah.
Something like that being 60 frames per second is going to be quite a game changer when it comes to cutting through some of those holes and stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, Madden's always fun to play, so got that to look forward to. Something else we have to look forward to, as was just finalized today. Start next week, Chiefs fans and fans of this show, we will have former Kansas City Chief Sean Smith will be a recurring guest on the show throughout the season. We'll have him on for his professional analysis as a pro football player. We'll bring him back from time to time, but talked to him today and got him locked up. He's going to be on the show next week. And actually, as Chris informed me earlier before we went on the air, he actually played for the Bengals as well. So, he'll actually probably be a good guy to have on next week as we recap the Chiefs Bengals preseason game. So. Definitely looking forward to having Sean on the show next week, and looking forward to that. Chris, an hour flies by, brother, when we talk Chiefs football. I mean, it's already come to an end.
That's all right. I'll be fine if the hours keep flying by. We just need them to keep going and get around to some football. So we're discussing the real games, and we're discussing wins, and we're discussing playoffs, and keep that rolling.
We are almost there. I mean, we are at the point where it is. We're a month away. We're a month away from the kickoff opener here. So we're getting very close. So fans, Chiefs fans, listeners, thank you so much for listening. We definitely appreciate it. If you are listening to us on Stitcher Radio, where we are available, please make sure you give us a thumbs up, write a good review to boost our rating on Stitcher and allow more Chiefs fans to readily see us on Stitcher. Also available on iTunes. So again, if you're there, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're giving us a good rating, high rating, and write a good review there. And if you're just listening to us straight off of the ProFootballCentral.com, which is our home network, we appreciate that as well. Make sure you're following Chris at GulleyAsDuff, GulleyAsDuff on Twitter. Make sure you're following me, JFSEIBEL, or make sure you're following the show at Radio Chiefs as we talk about stuff on Twitter and ask questions and interact with you that way. Chiefs fans, it's here. It is Red Thursday. Tomorrow, Friday, hopefully will be a Victory Friday for the first Chiefs preseason game as they face the Cincinnati Bengals for preseason game number 1. We will have you next week, the recap of all the games and everything else that we can as far as talking Chiefs. For Chris Kilduff up in the Pacific Northwest, as always, I'm Jason Seibel down in San Antonio, Texas, saying keep it red, keep it yellow, keep it Chiefs. Good night.